people won't care. Here is the Electoral Commission, the independent regulator, has found that one side, in the biggest vote the country's ever undertaken, cheated. But Gary doesn't care. Why don't you care, Gary?
Because I made up my mind long before the referendum took place. As you know, there was many incidents leading up to this moment about the amount of money that we pay in Europe, our ability to govern ourselves, and many other issues as well. So I made up my mind, and the people and friends.
But the money is spent, and the two things that you've suggested are certainly at the very least open to question. The money is spent, of course, on getting out the messages that you've just described. So anybody who received those messages more loudly than they should have done under the context of the electoral law has been defrauded. So why don't you care?
Well, first of all, prove that it did have the kind of effect. The only way you can do that is asking the people themselves.
No. Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't, because no one's going to know why they voted the way that they voted. They're not going to be aware of all of the influences that they were subjected to and not subjected to. And a lot of people are still labouring under epic delusions and falsehoods about almost every level of the referendum. They spend the money to get the messages out. The reason why there are limits on how much money they can spend is to ensure a level playing field. This report will conclude that the playing field was not level, but you're comfortable with playing on a cheat's charter, and I just want, in your own words, to understand why.
Well, this question about how much you spend on marketing your
No. The rules are clear, and they've been broken. And I want to know why you're comfortable living in a legal and electoral environment where rules are patently broken. What's the point? Let me phrase the question differently. What's the point of rules, Gary?
There are rules for a certain, I suppose, aspect in governing whatever you want to do in life, I guess. And
that doesn't mean anything. What is the point? What is the point of rules in the context of elections?
Well, I think in this particular, let's look at this particular matter. Are we clutching straws after 2 years coming out with this?
We're looking at 4 charges of breaking electoral law being upheld. So I'll ask you again, what is the point of rules in elections?
Well, I guess I'm satisfied because the outcome was what I wanted, so I'm not particularly bothered.
What is the point? What is the point of rules in elections?
Well, I think we all break rules, but as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
What is the point of rules? What are they there for?
To adhere to them, I guess.
And why is it important that they're adhered to?
Well, I guess to have some kind of common ground of belief.
Why is it important that rules are adhered to?
Well, I'm not eloquent enough to explain that. I know in my mind why they should be, but
because you rang in to tell me that they're not important and they shouldn't be adhered to, and you didn't care if they were broken.
I rang in to say it doesn't bother me because it didn't influence me.
Because
me in particular.
They cheated.
I don't think cheat comes.
And we know why. Well, what word would you use for breaking the law?
But I don't think that a kind of same kind of crime, if you want to speak that way, as rigging votes. Or other things are far more serious than that.
Okay, that's what the Electoral Commission are there for, to impose the rules, but you've phoned in to tell me that you don't care about the Electoral Commission's role in imposing rules. So let's go back to that. Let's just go back briefly to the question of why the rules that you rang in to tell me you didn't care about are actually important, because I'm glad we've made that journey together. Because you know the answer. You don't have to be eloquent to say, because if the rules are broken, the result is invalid, Gary.
Well, I'm just curious at how all this come up after 2 years.
It's taken 2 years to investigate it because.
Well, are there games played on both sides, which led?
Well, that can be invested. That can be investigated as well. You're suggesting that the Electoral Commission isn't independent now, are you?
Well, it seems everyone's have a point of view, and whichever.
No. Independent is the opposite of having a point of view. So, are you suggesting the Electoral Commission isn't independent? The only independent regulator governing electoral law isn't independent because they found the side you like broke the rules. That's what you've rung in to tell me.
Who actually instigated this? And is it been? If it comes to the court of law, and he's actually
I'm not Google, Gary. We both know. No, it's not a question of where I'm coming from. It's a very simple question of you not caring about rules being broken because you liked the result that was delivered in circumstances that can now be fairly described as invalid. And that is kind of how terrible things happen throughout history under the guise of democracy. It's how Vladimir Putin gets a 97% result in an election, because the rules by which everybody has to abide don't exist. They still exist here, but as you beautifully and brilliantly have highlighted, people are so entrenched now in their own delusion and denial that they're going to try to convince themselves that they don't care about the only protection our democracy has from electoral fraud, from misspending. misallocation of funds. I don't care. Why not? Oh, well, I got the result that I wanted. Why did you want that result? Well, fish, James, and passports.